Hello, I'm Connie Alexander. People have been racing horses for thousands of years, probably about as long as they've been domesticated. For the last 250 years, the thoroughbred has been the horse to beat. The Roman Empire conducted horse races as far back as the 3rd century BC in what is now Yorkshire, England. The sport flourished for centuries. During the reign of King Henry VII, breeding for racing stock became very popular. Native horses from Ireland and Scotland were bred with Arabians and barb horses from Spain and Italy. The exact ancestry of the thoroughbred breed is difficult to determine. Racing horses were frequently named after their owners. When a horse was bought and sold, their names would change. Facts we do have about the ancestors of today's thoroughbred originated with 3 famous stallions. They were the Darley Arabian, the Godolphin Arabian, and the Byerly Turk. These 3 stallions were brought to England from Turkey, Syria, and Yemen. The very term thoroughbred indicates an ancestry that can be traced back to one of these 3 foundation sires. North America embraced this sport. In 1745, an organized racing was first conducted in Annapolis, Maryland. During the Revolutionary War, the importation of thoroughbreds from England came to a halt. Because of their value to the military, many horses were taken from the track to the battlefield. Consequently, many of the finest thoroughbred stock was lost in battle. After the war, the agricultural South came to the forefront in both breeding and racing. During the Civil War, the Southern cavalry was dominated by thoroughbreds and thoroughbred crosses. As the war raged, the South exhausted its supply of horses. As the equine resources diminished, so did the fighting strength of the South. Although many thoroughbreds were lost during the Civil War, the breed survived. Through selective breeding, this horse has improved and proliferated. Thoroughbreds are expected to carry 1,000 pounds of body weight over extended distances. They can travel at speeds of 35 to 40 miles an hour. In order to accomplish this, the best thoroughbreds have slender legs with a minimum of 8 inches of bone below the knee. The shoulders are well sloped, the body short, with depth through the girth. Thoroughbreds come in many equine colors, but the most common are bay, chestnut, or brown. They stand between 14.2 and 17 hands high, with 16 hands being the average. There is much more to the thoroughbred than just racing. These horses have stamina and heart. As a result, they excel in the role of hunter, jumper, as well as eventer. Through the efforts of retirement and adoption foundations, these beautiful horses are finding their places in equine educational programs and riding programs for the mentally and physically challenged. At home in the show ring as well as the racetrack, this breed has a well-deserved place of distinction in the equine world. The people who know these horses best are those who raise and train them. We talked with just a few who shared their thoughts and feelings about this legendary breed.
The thoroughbred is a horse that can be many different things. They can be sweet, gentle, kind. They're according to how you've trained them. What you put into them is pretty much what you'll get out of them. If you train them to go to the track, they're hyper. If you got them out here as brood mares, sometimes they'll love all over you and sometimes they might kick you. So they're used for everything. I mean, they use them for hunter jumpers. People will use them for just pleasure horses. The mares will go back to farms. If they are good horses, they'll go back to the farm, become a brood mare to produce another good racehorse. The thoroughbred just can't be taken out and turned loose in a lot. If you do, they'll wither away. They've got to be fed and taken care of every day. Put a thoroughbred in a lot with another horse, the other horse will get fat and the thoroughbred will get thin, and you'll lose them if you don't take care of them. If you bring a thoroughbred home from a track, you've got to realize that that horse has got to have time to come off the track. It's hyper. It's got to be taken care of. It's got to be walked. They go through some emotional things that, just like a person would do, that they have to be worked with. And sometimes that takes a couple of years to get them out of that, to get them down to the fact that you can just turn them out in the lot and feed them every day and have a horse for anybody to use. I would like to see more people in Tennessee become involved in the thoroughbred business because it it is something to a sideline business or whatever that is something that you can have pleasure with as well as misery too. So, but I'd like to see more people involved in it.
I think they're probably as easy to train as any horse, easier than most, because they do have mentality. And I don't know why, other than they've been bred in refinement, you know, which a lot of the other breeds, you know, is not that old. And through the years, they try to breed for conformation and intelligence, you know, because if you can't train him, you can't race him.
Is there a point where you know that a horse is going to be good for the track, or is going to be a runner?
If a horse doesn't overstep, if he don't do certain things, he's probably not going to be a nice horse, you know. But if he oversteps, you know, he's got to overstep about 1 foot 8 inches, and if he does that, he's got a pretty good chance, really. I think that's probably the biggest thing a horse has to do, because a short striding horse can't run. I mean, they can run short, but they can't run very far. So they have to have a good stride.
Would you recommend people getting into the thoroughbred racing business, maybe who had never been in it before?
Well, if you keep it in perspective, I think you can make money. But it's a long-range program. I don't think you can get in today and be rich tomorrow. You know, it don't work that way. I say that you got to give it 5 years, and if you keep it in perspective of what your income or what you want to afford to spend or want to spend, if you keep that in perspective for 5 years, I think you can make money. So, you know, a lot of people don't agree with that, but any racing breed is at any age you can participate, which is not true of a lot of sports. And you can keep it on any level. You can have a hands-on program, or you can have somebody to do it for you and have the pleasure of watching them race. And so, and then as you get older and you don't want to race, you can still have a breeding program. And
what does it feel like to sit in the stands and watch one of your horses run that track and win?
I get awfully nervous. I get very upset when we are getting ready to race. One morning we were running Bonnie Scott, and we were getting ready to leave. And my wife kept asking me questions. And I finally said, honey, please don't say anything to me until this race is over. She looked at me and she says, well, I thought we were having fun.
All right.
And that day he won, and we did have fun.
And have fun. All right. All right.
But it's a thrilling thing to have your horse that you have raised, that you own the mare, and you raise him from the beginning, and you made the selection to breed that horse, and to see that horse run. It's like having your child participate in sports. And it is a thrill, and probably people don't know that have never done it. But to see my horse winning a race with my colors on is awfully exciting.
I've been involved with quarter horses. I got involved in 1972, and in quarter horse racing in Texas in 1974. I've been involved in racing since then, but when I was transferred in my job to east of the Mississippi, I was encouraged to get into the thoroughbred industry, so I got into the thoroughbred industry in 1979 and have been in it since then.
Barbara, what happens to your horses when they're no longer able to race?
We actually have another farm that's about 6 miles from here, and those horses have a beautiful view of the river. It's nice rolling hills, beautiful grass, and that's their home now.
I really like the horse. I really like the breed. I am a horse lover. I just happen to be a trainer of thoroughbred racehorses. My background's in medicine, and as a result, I try to train my horse from the inside out. I do that with a lot of empathy and a lot of sensitivity to every one of their aches and pains and every one of their age growths. So at that point, or for that reason, I'm sensitive enough to know that if a horse is sore, there's a reason. I try to determine what that reason is, and as opposed to injecting it or giving it some artificial stimulation or solution, I give it time. I turn the horse out. These are my horses. Ann and I both share them together. And as a result, I can take the luxury of turning them out, giving them the weeks, the months, the years, if necessary, to bring them around. So as a result of that, people around here and on the horsing circuit know that I do that. And a lot of times I get horses that, one, either don't run, or two, are broken down, or three, just don't think they're going to run. And I've had several horses that were abandoned because they were no longer good for running, and a little bit of time and a little bit of study on them from a medical perspective, I found that they were a hypothyroid horse. One in particular went on to win 7 races after we gave him a treatment of thyroid, and the horse was a different horse and was sold later for better than $12,000, and so it was a very good success story. I recently claimed a horse. I had watched it for a while, knew that it was very capable, well bred, but it wasn't running to its full potential. So I claimed a horse from one of the races, had it x-rayed, discovered that there was a hairline fracture in his front leg, and that he was a hypothyroid horse. So we turned him out for 8 months, brought him back into training, gave him the therapy, the thyroxine therapy, and we ended up running him. He'll run Wednesday, and last time he ran, 3 weeks ago, he ran a third in a good hard mile race, and we look forward to seeing him take a picture on Wednesday.
Clinton Anderson started his career training horses down under. Born and raised in Australia, he now brings his step-by-step, no-nonsense training methods to clinics all over the country.
I think the biggest thing I try and get across to people, especially new horse owners, is that you've got to gain your horse's respect. If you don't gain their respect, everything you want to do with them will seem like a constant fight and battle. If a horse doesn't respect you, he's not going to listen to you. If he doesn't listen to you, it makes the relationship a very uncomfortable one for both you and your horse. People have got to understand, horses are basically a prey animal. People are a predator. So we see things from different points of view. We've got to first consider the horse's point of view first, and then it'll be easier for us to get our concepts across to him. Instead of thinking the horse is just a stupid horse, we've got to look at things from his side of the coin. Does that make sense to you? So if you gain your horse's respect by having to move forwards, backwards, left and right, just like a dominant mare would in the pasture, pretty soon your horse will start listening and giving you a lot less trouble, because he'll be looking to you for the answers and the leadership. If you don't have respect, you have nothing. I think the biggest mistake people make is feeling like no preparation. They go out there, put the saddle on and get straight on and hope for the best. It's like an airplane, like a pilot. If you don't just get in the plane and just fly off straight away. You get out, you check the engine, you check the tires, you do some pre-flight checks before you just get on and go. That most people get hurt or injured on horses because they didn't do any preparation to succeed. They went out there, saddled their horse up, horse hadn't been ridden in 3 months, and they wonder why they got bucked off. A horse basically is an attitude with 4 feet. Every day their attitude changes slightly, just like we're an attitude with 2 feet. Every day we might wake up happy, cranky, mad, scared, frustrated, worried. Horse is no different. If every day we analyze what kind of mental frame they're in and then readjust that if it's not what we want, we'll succeed with our lessons for the day. But if we just get out of bed and start working with our horse and don't get that horse to be in the same positive mind that we want them to be in, they're going to be fighting against us all the time. I think the biggest thing you got to realize is there is help out there for people. You know, there's no reason now where somebody should feel hopeless or lost or don't know what to do. There's so many books, videos, horsemanship clinics. I do personal horsemanship clinics every weekend of the year where I take people and their horses and I show them their techniques. If you want the help is out there. All you've got to do is go find it. You know, you can get on the internet and look at literally hundreds of people traveling around the country teaching horsemanship techniques and getting your horses to pay attention and listen to you. All you've got to do is want to change. Even if you don't want to leave your backyard, there's so many good books and videos out there that teach people step by step how to have success. You know, there's nothing that replaces that one-on-one teaching method when you go with your horse to a horsemanship clinic, but you know, at the very least you can start applying yourself to the principles of changing your horse's attitude. Your horse won't change his attitude until you change yours first. If you're not willing to go find help for yourself, your horse isn't going to bother helping you.
As a competitor, Michael Bothello has traveled throughout the U.S., Canada, and Europe collecting championships. For the past 19 years, he has been training and riding hunter jumpers. He talked about this sport and his thoroughbred partner, St. John.
I've been involved with horses pretty much all my life since the age of 5, but I've been now a professional hunter jumper trainer for the past 19 years. This horse is named St. John. He's a registered thoroughbred horse. He's a 12-year-old horse. He's a jumper, and he also does the show hunters as well. Last year, St. John was the Marshall Sterling Championship winner, which the championships were held in Old Salem, New York. And he's also a horse that has placed at many big horse shows, including the Winter Equestrian Festival in Florida. And he's also done very well on the hunter circuit as well. The thoroughbred, I think the thoroughbred is one of the most wonderful breed of horse, especially the American thoroughbred. With thoroughbreds, a lot of people think that, oh, it's just a horse on the racetrack at the Kentucky Derby. Thoroughbreds can be the most kindest, gentlest horses. As you can see here at St. John, you can use thoroughbreds for dressage, driving, hunters, show jumpers. Some thoroughbreds make very good kid horses, and they're just a good general all-round horse. I started training as a young kid in the island of Bermuda. When I was 10 years old, I went to Canada to compete for Bermuda, and while I was in Canada competing, I won the Junior Jumper Championships in Canada at the age of 10 years old, and then turned professional at the age of 19. I've ridden in the World Cup in France, and I've done many Grand Prix throughout the U.S. I've competed at Madison Square Garden. I've done all the indoors, the Harrisburg Horse Show, the Washington International Horse Show, and then on to the Garden, which I competed in the junior hunters and also the Medal McClay equitation divisions at the Garden. I always find people who have always been very interested in jumping horses, but never thought that they could ever jump a horse. You know, if you've got the guts, go forward, find yourself a good trainer, and anyone's capable of showing in the hunter and jumper division, no matter what age you start at.
Research shows that children who cannot read often turn to criminal behavior later in their lives. The Black Stallion Literacy Project was developed to bring children and horses together to combat this alarming reality.
Why am I interested in being involved in the Black Stallion Literacy Program? Because I think it inspires people to do good for other people. I think it builds self-esteem, you know, for our kids. It affects their whole life. It affects their income. It affects their outlook on life, you know, and their self-esteem about themselves. And so the program is about helping others. Walter Farley, you know, when he wrote these books, it was about helping kids and helping them get involved and feeling good, you know, about themselves. It goes right along with principles that we have, or God has given us in His Bible. I mean, if they can't read, they can't even find out what their Creator says and wants them to know about themselves. And so that all they do is they look at that big book and they think, oh, there's no way, you know, that I'll ever be able to read that or understand that. The program is about helping others. it's about investing our time, investing our efforts, and doing what God wants us to do, and what He's always asked us to do, and that was just basically help other people.
The Black Stallion was written by my father, Walter Farley, in 1941. He continued to write the rest of the series for the rest of his life. The Black Stallion is part of the legacy of the Farleys, but mostly we've been working with doing some other projects. One of the projects that I'm very excited about is the Black Stallion Literacy Project, which I've started with Mark Miller.
The Black Stallion Literacy Project is a nonprofit organization dedicated to the proactive teaching of reading skills and literacy through the arts for 1st and 4th grade students. Our theory is that if we can teach kids to read in the 1st grade and excite them about reading in the 4th grade, that we will encourage them to continue their education. There's some phenomenal statistics that I could quote you. One is in one state they're studying 4th grade literacy to find out how many prison cells they have to build in the next 20 years, because they know the correlation between being functionally illiterate and crime is so high that they can predict it through a study of 4th grade literacy. For the cost of about 80 prisoners a state, we can teach every kid to read in the 1st grade with Little Black Pony and Little Black Goes to the Circus, involving horses at the schools. This is a critical part. And the theory of the Literacy Project is that we are able to involve horses at the schools to excite the children about the idea of reading. And it really works. Anybody who's been to a school with us will tell you how it works. The kid goes and touches the horse, and then immediately after they touch the horse, they get a book. They don't make it 3 steps before they open the book. They don't make it 10 steps before they sit down and are talking to the kid next to them.
And I think Mark hit it on the nail on the head when he said that, you know, this inspires. Once they touch that horse, they're not just reading a book, they're not reading about something that they haven't seen, touched, felt. It's all of a sudden part of their life. And Winston Churchill said it best when he said that there's something about the outside of the horse that is good for the inside of the man. Well, that doesn't change whether it's a little man or a big one, does it? And so you just see these kids light up, and all of a sudden we've inspired them. You know, we've inspired them, or the horses inspired them to get involved and to want to learn more. And I think that that's what Mark uses the very best.
Fortunately, that's not the end of our program. Our program goes on by having the child back to meet a horseman who is an admired adult and a horse, and they get to read Little Black Pony to the horse person, and then spend a little time with the horse and go back and get another book, Little Black Goes to the Circus. The effectiveness of this program is that children then want to continue to read. In our 4th grade project, which we developed with the Fort Worth school system and the Kennedy Center out of Washington, D.C., we excite children into thinking about the arts and using their imagination, which was so important to Walter Farley and to the Farley family now. What happens there is we take in the book, The Black Stallion, the movie, The Black Stallion, and a live performance featuring Walter Farley's Black Stallion from Arabian Nights. And we take this show on the road. This year we're going to be in Fort Worth, we're going to be in Tucson, in Flagstaff, Arizona, in addition to being in Florida. What happens with this program is we ask them to read the first third of the book. Then we ask them to watch the movie and see the show. We have writing contests, we have art contests, we have a full involvement of the child in the arts using their own imagination. We point out to them that Walter Farley wrote this book while he was a student in high school and in college. The book was published when he was in college. We also point out that the co-writer of the screenplay for Francis Ford Coppola was in college at the time that she wrote the screenplay. So we say to children, this is something you can do while you're still a student. You can make your dreams come true, or you can begin to make your dreams come true while you're a student. You don't have, this isn't waiting until later. It's something you develop now, and you can make your imagination real. What we have found with this program is that the children are so excited that they will finish the book on their own. We don't require them to finish the book, but 100% of them do. The important thing about this is that they then know, consciously or subconsciously, that they have made a decision to read for pleasure. And they ask us immediately, what other book can we read? And of course, the great thing is that there are 27 books in the Farley series. They can go to those, but once we get them started, if they want to branch off and read a different kind of book, it's great. Well, you have to understand that there is a bond between horses and people that is completely unique in history. It comes partially because the horse is a very intuitive animal. Dogs and cats are more logical animals. Horses are intuitive. And for children, they have that intuition right there. And with the horse, it's an immediate bond. It happens immediately. And there's scientific studies and evidence that will demonstrate this to you. Before recorded history, in the genetic makeup of people, we are made to relate to animals, and especially to the horse.
Well, I think the program is tremendous. I truly do. I think it's a worthwhile cause. I think we can't help but be successful when we're giving of ourselves to other people.
The role horses have played in our lives has changed drastically over the last 2 generations. Even though mechanization removed our need for their raw power, horses continue to contribute to our recreation, our need for relationship, and even our mental health. Remember, when you are horsing around, be safe.
When you're in your later years, if you don't fish and you don't golf and you don't do a lot of those other things, then you're kind of useless. So, but you can still race horses.
That's right. That's right.
Well, you probably fit the program.